Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton here with you as part of a special event hosted by our friends at Easy Post. Hey, I sure hope you've enjoyed all the conversations and thought leadership thus far, focused on unboxing sustainability, strategies for a greener logistics future. What a great day of programming. Folks, buckle up. We've got a great conversation here today with a business leader out there moving mountains. But before I introduce my dear friend Kyle, a couple items for you out there. Number one, hey, let us know what you think as we work our way through this conversation. Share your comments throughout the discussion. And secondly, if you enjoy this virtual event powered by our friends here at Easy Post, hey, be sure to share it with a friend or your network. They'll be glad you did. Okay, time to get to work. I want to start by welcoming in our dear friend, featured guest, Kyle Garcia, Director of SCM Strategy and Portfolio with Adidas. Of course, the iconic global sports brand you see everywhere. Now, when he's not doing big things in supply chain, Kyle also serves on the board of directors of the Portland ASCM chapter, where he gives forward and helps provide professional development opportunities for lots of folks, kind of like today. So welcome in, Kyle. How you doing?
Scott, great to connect as always. Been a long time. Been close friends with the show for a hot minute, and it's always great to catch up with you, Scott.
Oh man, absolutely. I'm gonna ask you in a minute about your journey, but before we do that, because we connected about 5 or 6 years ago, but I want to get a travel tip from you first. I've got a burning question for you. I've heard
Okay.
so much about the food scene up in the Portland area. So for folks that may be visiting Portland this summer or next winter, whatever, what's one must-eat at place you'd recommend?
Oh man, I got to give you two because everybody knows about Kin's Artisans Pizza. Portland is renowned for having some of the best pizza in the world.
Okay.
So definitely Kin's, but my personal favorite is a combination of Thai and barbecue. Eam, just not too far from the office. I'm actually kind of hesitating sharing that, but I guess the cat's out of the bag. My wait might be a little bit longer now, but absolutely, you come to Portland, you go to Eam, you will not be disappointed. Everybody leaves with a full stomach and smiles on their face.
Oh, I love it. Thai and barbecue. You had me at Thai before you even said the whole thing. I'm with you. All
Yep, yep.
right. So as you referenced, as we both referenced, we had a great time meeting each other probably 5 or 6 years ago at a great conference down in Florida. And I'm curious, Kyle, you have continued to go on to bigger and bigger things. Tell us about a couple of key moments in your journey into supply chain leadership.
Yeah, so many to draw back upon. But I think the greatest thing that I always look back is the people that I'm working with. We're in supply chain. A lot of times we're not the flashy. We don't get the opportunities to be up on stage and represent the brand like maybe some of our colleagues in marketing or sales might get to. But we're behind the scenes. We're making things happen. So I always carry a lot of pride just coming from the space that we do because we are the doers. We get things done. But during COVID, we saw an unlock within our industry and within the focus of supply chain that really has been prideful for me. And what do I mean by that? I work, we connected before. I was with Danner, previously with Adidas. Now I'm back at Adidas again. Thankfully, great company, both of them. Love them both. But when I was there, one of the things that we had to pivot on was try to bring people forward and help them to balance their work-life balance mentally. They had to balance themselves and physically. And in both organizations, I can tell you, I've seen this where the organization has put an emphasis on prioritizing our mentality and being physical and getting out. So, of course, we work for brands. I'm fortunate enough to work for brands that are in the outdoor space, in the running space, in the athletic space. But again, what I see for myself is I've worked for two incredible companies that are helping people to emphasize putting their health first. Where I look back 10 years ago, and maybe some of the companies in this space and and globally are not focused there. So seeing that evolution, it's near and dear to my heart. I love it. It means a lot to me. Yeah, that's what I got to go with.
I could tell tons of passion there. And as much as I loved your comments around the work-life balance and companies that really invest in maintaining a healthy one, I got to go back because I love this phrase you used. We are the doers. And I'm with you. The people of global supply chain is the best part about being in this golden age of supply chain right now. Frankly, it's always been the best part for me, and I think you probably share that sentiment.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears. I want to get into, we're talking all things sustainability here today, really focused on sustainability across industry, but especially from a retail and supply chain perspective. And I can't wait to get some of your perspective and expertise here. So I want to start with demand. Surprise, surprise. Let's start with a growing demand for sustainability across the globe, which should surprise nobody, right? Check out these data points. According to a McKinsey survey from a couple years back, 66% of all respondents and 75% of millennial respondents stated that sustainability is important to them as they consider their purchases, as they spend those bucks. Now, Accenture research shows that 72% of survey respondents said they were buying more environmentally friendly products than they did just 5 years ago. And Kyle, 81% said they'd buy even more when it comes to the next 5 years. And I bet all of those numbers are going up, I bet. One final thing, all of that shows up in the sales revenue data because according to McKinsey and Nielsen IQ, their research shows that products making ESG related claims averaged almost 30% cumulative growth over the last 5 years, as compared to just 20% for products that did not make the same claims. So
Wow.
again, no one should be surprised by any of that. But I want to ask you, Kyle, when you think of your customers and this demand, how have you seen that demand and sustainability materialize in feedback, buying trends, their behavior? What do you see, Kyle?
Yeah, fantastic question. Obvious thing, right? Fashion industry continues to be one of the largest CO2 emitters on the planet. To your point, in some of the data that you just highlighted, consumers, it's resonating with them. They see this, they know this. This is a topic that are on consumers' mind, and it's absolutely shaping and influencing whether they're going to buy brand A or brand B. So
Right.
naturally, because our organization loves the planet that we live on and wants it to be better for our children and our children's children, but we want to also connect with our consumers and make sure that we're doing this on this journey together. Adidas has taken a real deep dive into developing solutions that keep product in play for longer, keep that in the consumer's hands longer, rethinking the materials that we're using. We're taking these same data points that you just referenced from Nielsen, and we're also tracking that trend that consumers are more conscientious of the circularity of products. So in short, like we absolutely, we've been doing this for a hot minute, but we are industry leaders in our field for looking for ways to reduce our carbon footprint. Yeah, we've been making our shots count for a long time now. Since 2021, we've been publishing a sustainability report, so that we can keep track of all of the great wins and actions.
Love that, Kyle. And a quick aside, hey, for my fellow Gen Xers out there, a hot minute means a long time, Kyle. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And I got to give a plug. I have an incredible team of sustainability experts. When I showed up here and we found out about this wonderful opportunity, they gave me a plethora of material, probably 50, 60 pages of insights. So I got nuggets. I'm going to be pulling out some data points here and there that we're going to reference, but this isn't me. This is really like the supply chain sustainability experts and team members here at Adidas that I'm representing.
Love it. The people, the doers.
People.
And talk about doers. Man, y'all are really acting on these things you're talking about. Adidas has been doing some really cool and powerful things to act on the sustainability imperative that's been taking root and growing for years. So let's talk about a couple of your favorite initiatives from recent years. What are some of your favorite things Adidas has been doing to meet this customer demand expectation when it comes to sustainability?
Oh boy. This we could talk for hours here, Scott. We don't have enough time of the day. I'm going to go off script, and the first thing that they told me was, "Whatever you do, don't go off script." No, I'm just kidding. No, they didn't say that, but I'm gonna share something personal first. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I talk about this about working, for a company that thinks about those generations. But personally, I want to work for an organization that emphasizes and recognizes the sustainability effort and why it's so important. I'm telling you personally, this is just my own conjecture here. I could not be prouder to work for a company that puts so much emphasis on sustainability
Right.
in all we do. It's the materials, it's the factory, it's the sourcing aspect of it, it's the transportation aspect of it, it's the circularity of our products. And as I already mentioned, here we do have so many initiatives for people here to make better choices in the way that they transport themselves to work. We have aluminum cups, like, right, we're trying to reduce plastic, all of those efforts. We just built a beautiful building here on our campus in Portland about 3 years ago. Gold LEED certified, cut no corners, went that way. But again, that was just a personal little tangent. The
Well, hey,
question,
really quick, Kyle,
yeah.
your daughter's name, your 8-year-old daughter's name,
Mazzy,
Mazzy.
as in Mazzy Star, because when I started dating my wife, 22 years ago, she said, if we ever have a daughter, her name's going to be Mazzy, like Mazzy Star, because she is my favorite. She's the best. And we held to it.
Love it. Well, really quick aside before you continue, I
Yeah.
love how
Yeah.
you personalize the things you do to make the planet a better place, and that serious mission, you personalize it back to who will be, leading the next generation, Mazzy, right? And
That's
all of our
right.
classmates. I love how you personalize that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the models we've had for a while is through sport, we have the power to change lives. Again, talking about that pride in the space of sustainability where Adidas is a leader, where we put forth those efforts, more sustainable materials and circularity, decarbonization of that, focus on sourcing and production, waste diversion within supply chain, biodiversity. Um, Also, how do we do this? It starts at the top. It's called an SBB. This is our sustainability sponsor board that we've
Okay.
created. It reports directly to the executive board, and it's responsible for global operations. So they're doing the development, the coordination of our sustainability efforts and strategy, and they're doing it at the highest level so it can have that top-down push. So again, it calls for all members within the organization, but it starts at the top. If you have that accountability, just like in all things in supply chain, it's going to get the focus and the prioritization that it needs.
Mm.
You asked for some data. We're in supply chain. We want to know the numbers.
Right.
What stands out? Well, we have so many fantastic initiatives that we can brag about and talk about. If you go to our website, you can actually click on our sustainability link at the very bottom, and it brings you to all of the fantastic things that we've seen on our journey. Right, I'm going to brag a little bit about 2022. So here's some data.
Okay.
2022, 6.7 million participants took part in Run for the Oceans, which was a program that we put on through our app and through other platforms. They logged over 771 million minutes of activity, which equated to the cleanup of 77 million plastic bottles from our beaches, islands, and coastal communities.
And Kyle, beyond that outcome, my hunch is the awareness that it helps spread about what
Yep.
we all need to do in the big old topic of sustainability. That awareness is critically important, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowledge is power. And then, so that another thing we did in 2022 was we launched our first made with a lower footprint range of products, which has a minimum of at least 10% reduction in CO2 versus the previous version. So again, just always looking for those refinements, those opportunities to make products more sustainable.
Yeah. A couple points there. I think as you're talking about, product design, I
Yep.
think one of the reasons we have so much work to be done is because we focus so much of our global mindset maybe on recycling versus circularity. And you're talking about designing products. I know this is old news, but I thought this was cool because when I ventured over, I saw in 2019, y'all made the first shoe that was could basically be ground down in whole and remade after use. Now I know that as you mentioned earlier, you're focused on customers, your customers using products longer, right, and wanting to and be able to offer the features that would make them want to. But how cool is that to be able
Yeah.
to 100% recycle a shoe?
You're talking about the future craft loop. So
Yes.
yeah, very familiar with it. Yep. Yep.
So that product design and that circularity is so critically important. And one other thing I'll point out that you spoke to is you were talking about reporting that SSB that reports up to the executive board. I think
Yep.
Adidas was probably one of the first really large worldwide companies to start reporting on sustainability. I think that started back in 2001, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's when, well, in 2001, we started publishing the sustainability report annually.
That's what it
So
was.
that's, but, definitely those conversations were happening before, but that's when we were one of the first companies to say, not only do we want to like track this and monitor it, we want to brag to our shareholders about it. We want to talk to the community. Knowledge is power, as we were just talking about. Let's get this out into the minds and hearts of consumers. So they're going to start thinking about this as they buy products, about
Yes.
how it's impacting the environment.
Well said, Kyle. And one more quick point before I pose the next question to you. That transparency you're speaking to, you see study after study, consumers want transparency. They will be more devoted to brands that provide that transparency, even when, everything's not perfect and unicorns and candy, whatever that phrase is. It's tough to drive change, right? It's tough to meet
Yeah,
aggressive sustainability goals. But man, when you're transparent about it, consumers take notice, huh?
absolutely. 100%.
All right. So speaking of challenges that come with all of this that we're talking about, it doesn't, I hate to break it to anybody, making progress and changing how business is done. Guess what? It's not easy. Yeah, we all know it, right? So Kyle, what's one challenge that comes to mind for you and whether it's for the team or out in general when it comes to making bigger gains from a sustainability standpoint?
There's a few challenges. I'm gonna take it from two that come to mind. One angle, let's talk first about organizations. Organizations are going to have to recognize that if we're going to make this move, that you're not going to always going to have to go with the lowest valued product. To do this is going to take an investment, and unfortunately, a lot of times that the strong arm of that comes in the wave of legal requirements, which you'd hope that companies and organizations are doing it for the right reason, not because they have to. But if that's the lever we have to pull, that's the lever we have to pull. So
Right.
again, just being aware that we might have to get to, from a consumer and from a retailer perspective, comfortable understanding that this is going to cost a little bit more, but it's the right thing to do. So there's got to be this push for people to be aware of that. But the second thing, and this is going to come from how do you influence this within an organization, whether it be retailer or maybe you're sitting in a company thinking about, how does this happen? How do I get the traction here? Silence is compliance.
Mm.
What do I mean by that? Well, nothing strengthens authority as much as a silent employee. So do the right thing. Don't be afraid to push boundaries. Don't be afraid to ask what else your organization can do.
So you shifted. So it takes investment. So
Yep.
folks, we're not, I've heard it put, those cheap apparel out there have really ugly supply chains. One of our guests on Supply Chain Now once said that it spent years and years in the apparel industry. So to your point, Kyle, it takes investment. It takes investment. So expect that. And then the second point, you're kind of offering some advice about to our audience about
Impacting. Yeah. Driving change.
impacting. Right. Speak up. Lean in. Challenge. Kind of portion of what I heard there is kind of challenge what's being shared, because
Totally.
that silence is compliance, as you shared, and that can be a not so good thing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other advice? So for our audience members out there that want to do what y'all have been doing for years at Adidas, making big gains in sustainability, there's not necessarily a finish line, although a wonderful person back in my journey said, Scott, there are finish lines. You cross them, you celebrate, and you just start the next race. And I loved how she put that. But, what would any other advice you might have for folks out there wanting to make big gains in sustainability, especially any retailers out there that are tuned in here today?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to what I was mentioning, like we're going to have a conversation, and if there's an area or space where you are looking at a decision tree of best price versus this one that might be a little bit more, but could be more effective, let that be part of your procurement process. Let that be part of your buying process. There should be something internally within your organization that you're using to weight the sustainability of their supply chain, the sustainability of their product, the circularity of their product. And you think about who do you want to be your partner 5 years from now? Do you want the lowest price, or do you want the company that's doing the right thing for the environment? And so for retailers, that's going to be making maybe some more challenging conversations,
Right.
but putting metrics in that actually measure that. But then the second part is making sure that your company's pushing that out to consumers, doing your part to informing consumers in this space, so that maybe in 5 years, the consumer doesn't lead with price. They're leading with what's best for the environment. Okay, now that I've picked that, okay, maybe price is a second or third determining factor, not the first.
Yes. Man, a lot of good stuff there. Informing the consumer, I tell you, as visibility gains have made so much progress in the recent years, there's still certain organizations out there fighting for that visibility, but I think we'll be able to inform the consumer in ways we've never imagined. And also,
Totally. Yeah.
another great point you made, Kyle, that mindset. You know, I think it's almost inarguable, almost, that for decades upon decades, price in the three-legged stool, price was the biggest, right?
Yeah.
Especially with our supply chain decisions.
Yep.
And to do what you're saying, going back to your earlier point, it takes investment. And to make that investment, it takes a different mindset to lean into. The balance sheet's going to look different if we're going to be making the progress we can make. Now, with that said, though, Kyle, once you do it, and once you do it right, there's some big time bottom line ramifications or results
Yep.
by giving the consumer what they want, right? That's where it really, you're not just doing the right thing, right? We're not just making the world a better place. We're not just being more mindful about the products that we're designing and then making, but we're acting on this sustainability imperative, which is what the consumers want, and they're going to spend more with you. So, man, you win. Organizations that do this, what you're describing, will win on a variety of levels, huh?
We talk about culture, right? Everybody talks about culture. You talk to sports teams, my beloved San Antonio Spurs,
Okay.
Georgia Bulldogs, Braves. I know where we're going to go. I don't want to get in too much trouble here, but these teams, you think about them, they build a culture, and that could be a good culture or a bad culture. You build this culture of sustainability within your organization, and it starts to become more natural. Then you start to have those massive unlocks after you've been doing this for a period of time. We don't even think about it now. This is part of the products that we make. It's one of the checklists. It's, you talked about that three-legged stool. Now we got 4 legs on that stool. That fourth leg is sustainability. So, it's not just about price and value and speed and quality, right? So we got to make sure that, to your point, like, this is part of these unlocks that you have as an organization. You build it part of your culture and your DNA. And naturally, it's, of course, what's the impact on that? How do we do that? How do we build this? How do we return that? What is the circular aspect of that product? Great question.
Well, I love your perspective, because it goes back. All of this ties so much together.
Yeah.
None of this is easy. But to one of your earlier points, we are the doers, and there's this art of the possible, and you are proving it can be done, right? And I think it takes it takes all these things we're talking about, right? A holistic approach, a change in the mindset, a willingness to make the investment, get the whole team involved, listen and inform the consumer, and there's a whole bunch more there, but really enjoyed your perspective. So here's and by the way, quick aside before I get you to predict the future. You mentioned the San Antonio Spurs. So I'll tell you, Kyle, we'll have to get together with Kevin L. Jackson, who leads our Digital Transformers series here at Supply Chain Now.
I know Kevin.
You know Kevin. Okay.
Yep.
So he went to the Naval Academy, and he played pickup basketball with the Admiral, David Robinson, from the legendary Spurs.
Oh, wow.
So we'll get you. We'll have to get some stories from Kevin on that. But anyway, all right. So let's test your ability. Man, not test your ability. Let's get you to break out your crystal ball, look
Okay.
deep into it, right? So when it comes to what's next in the innovative, fast-moving world of sustainability, especially outcome, real outcome delivering sustainability that we're talking about here today, any forward-looking prediction that you'd like to share, Kyle?
Oh boy. Okay. Again, I'm in the strategy and the portfolio management on the strategy and execution team, and I'm taking this view of like, what are we going after? What do we need from a supply chain to unlock over the next 5 years, right?
Right.
That long term look. But I will say, what I did connect with again our sustainability team, and they blew my mind. And also like in this preparation work, I'm not gonna lie, when we're going through this all of this insight, I'm like thinking to myself, how can I pull this into my 5 year strategy and plan that I'm working with on my team? How can we pull this in to make this part? So I'm going to cover some of these things, and I'll be super honest. Like, some of these were super incredible. Shout out to my colleague and expert Frank Yeager, who filled in and really took the bulk of some of these initiatives, because this is one that he was really passionate about. But the first thing he said was true circularity. There's a lot of organizations out there and national institutes that are taking major leaps in true circularity. But what is that? That's the secure return, sortation, the assembly, the recycling, the secondary resource use. So getting organizations to get closer to that true circularity aspect. There's a thing called EPR, which is extended producer responsibility. And what that means is that when you buy something, there's going to be a little fee associated with it based on its sustainability. So it's could be its footprint, could be its emissions, but there's a little fee that you pay for products that don't meet a certain criteria. So
Yep.
we've seen this already starting to be piloted in the automotive space and in various ways. And I know you've had some really great topics on supply chain now on that very thing. But again, clicking this down outside of automotive, like, what does that look like from a product perspective? Paying a little bit of a higher rate on things, on organizations and products that are not built through responsibly. The use of AI and textile reverse logistics, nearshoring and positive impact on transport emissions, understanding where those wins and those gains can be happen. Another one that he talked about was having a digital passport, which you're a consumer, you walk up, you scan it, or find it on some tracking device, maybe your smartphone, and you have all of the information on like a report card on how sustainable the product is. Now,
Love that.
all of these things, like, there's so much, and I mean, Frank, talking to him and getting some of his thoughts were so refreshing, and of course, we just started to spin so many spaces, but yeah, we had about 30 different bullet points that we were going through that were really, really cool. So there's just a few there.
Love that. And some of those are already here. I would
Yeah,
argue.
yeah.
I love your. I wish we had a couple more hours to dive into each of those. But one of the things I want to call out that you
Yeah.
mentioned that I hope our audience really. I mean, it's proven. Our dear friend Tony Schroeder with the Reverse Logistics Association has long called the reverse logistics space, returns management space, to be the dark side of supply chain because it's not talked about. There's not visibility. Many organizations ignore it. So, folks, take it from Kyle. Not only is there cool things, leveraging AI, many other technologies, and great people in the reverse space, but it's under recognized. There's huge gains you can make, and you've got to bake that reverse and returns management side back up into product design as well. That's critical. So great call out, Kyle, as always. Really appreciate your time here today. I'm sure folks, if they want to grab a cup of coffee with you, pick your brain a little bit
Yep.
more, dive into other cool things you're doing, I bet they can track you down on LinkedIn, is my hunch, Kyle. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Reach out on LinkedIn. Also, again, just giving a shout out to you, Scott. I appreciate all the great work you do in our supply chain space. I'm a big fan. We've got to collaborate a couple different times. Scott's come, and he's been one of our public speakers for our PDM for ASCM here in Oregon. So if anybody is looking to come to Portland or is in the area and wants to come and talk to our local professional group, want to give a little hashtag plug out there. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can get you connected. I'm looking to network as much as possible. Always excited to meet other like-minded professionals that love supply chain and love sustainability.
Well said, Kyle. And I gotta correct the record, because while we collaborated on that meeting, it was the incredible supply chain student leader from Howard University that blew our socks off. So I was happy just to be there. So Kyle, I love the work you're doing. And folks, you need to connect with Kyle Garcia, Director of SCM Strategy and Portfolio with Adidas. But more importantly, a figure in industry that's doing big things and giving forward to others. So Kyle, great to have you here.
Yeah, as always.
So folks, hey, what do you think? We've got to keep the dialogue going, because that's what not only leads to new innovative ideas, but more importantly, it leads to action and outcomes. And Kyle has, man, he has shared that by the truckload here today. That's what it's about. Deeds, not words. That's what makes things happen, because, to paraphrase Kyle Garcia, we are the doers. So, hey, big thanks to Kyle. Big thanks to all of you out there joining this virtual conference and for sharing your own perspective. Drop the comments. Let us know what you think. Big thanks to EasyPost for investing in outstanding opportunities just like this conference here today. Folks, be sure to check out Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcast. A little plug there. But more importantly, on behalf of the entire team here, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change. And we'll see you all again real soon. Have a great day, everybody.